Welcome to the Core Happiness Podcast. I'm your host, Kacee Banks, a mindset and positive psychology coach. On this podcast, we discuss all things related to creating happiness from within. So let's do it. Welcome to the Core Happiness Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Julie Coraccio, an award-winning professional declutterer, organizer, certified life coach, and author of 15 books. She's passionate about helping people get organized, live more mindfully, and clear clutter in every area of life. Julie is also the host of the popular podcast, Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out. In this episode, we are diving into what clutter really is, how disorganization impacts our peace of mind, and why preparing for death can actually help us live more fully. Get ready to take notes because I bet clutter is not what you think it is. As always, we would love for you to like, comment, and subscribe so we can continue to bring you helpful content like this. Now, on to the show. Julie, first of all, welcome to the show. So happy to have you here. I know one of the things that we talked about, you and I, before coming on is just how excited I am because I always think of January as a fresh start, yes, but I think of it more as a time to reset. And I think decluttering, organizing, all of that is incredibly important, which is why I'm so glad you're able to come on and talk to us today. I know that you have such an amazing career. And not only are you an award-winning declutterer and organizer, I know that you are also an author of over 15 books. I know that you are a certified life coach. So can you just tell us a little bit about your career and what got you into organizing and decluttering?
Sure. Well, I'm just going to, I'm glad this is recorded because I'm having an off day. I'm going to go ahead and play that. So thank you for that wonderful introduction. So I was in a crazy job. My background is in fund development. And I thought, you know what? I just don't want to get another job. So what can I do? I've got to support myself. I'm a single woman. And I was like, I can organize, right? People need that. There's actually, and I'd tell a funny story. If any of your listeners are business people, I'm a firm believer of women doing your own thing. There's a resource called SCORE, which is retired business folks. So like someone gave me advice on marketing, on setting up a business. And I'll never forget, I had these two old guys and they're like, you want to do what? Like people are going to pay you for that? And so I was like, yeah. So I started my business. And at the time, I really focused on organization. And then while I started my business, I had an internet TV show called Reawaken Your Brilliance where I would interview body, mind, spirit experts. And I had this aha moment. I was doing that and then I was working with a client and she said, can we just talk? And I work in 4-hour blocks usually. And I said, you're the client. We can do whatever you want. And so we ended up talking, digging a little deeper, understanding the why behind her clutter and disorganization. And we talked for 3 hours. And in that last hour, we got so much done. And that was I'm like, you know what? It's clearing the clutter. That needs to be the first step for just about everyone. And I'm like, and then you need to go and work on your life coach and get certified because this is a skill that you need to bring into your business. And so that was kind of it went from the name of Healing Through Organization, use Reawaken Your Brilliance. And as I did more work and I'm interviewing all these people and they'd be like, hey, you'll use you as a guinea pig, read my book and then we'll do EFT or do whatever. I was like, you know what? Clutter's more than just our physical stuff. And so that's kind of how it evolved for me and where I am today.
That's amazing. And honestly, I honestly have never even heard of SCORE. So also thank you for that tidbit of information because I think that's going to be helpful for a lot of people. One of the things I was wondering as you were telling that story, have you always been like a natural organizer? Have you always been a pretty tidy person, just naturally organized and together?
I would say yes to being organized, but I wouldn't call myself tidy. One of the things I want to say to people listening, go for good enough. The thing I dislike about social media is we see these Instagram stories that aren't real life. Like I'm sitting in my office now. We just got our hardwoods redone. Went and decamped, took a bunch of cats to my father's house. And so we're coming and I'm putting back my house together. And so good enough is what I'm going to encourage people to strive for. And I'm a little bit type A. And so before I even knew this was a career, people were like, you're kind of uptight. Will you come help me like get my stuff together? And so there was always that aspect. But I think what I'm most proud of is I always try to be the best version of me. And so that's decluttering all the stuff in my emotional, my spiritual, all that good stuff, relationship, and to be the best me. So, but I just encourage, physical stuff to go for good enough.
I know. I absolutely love that because I think a lot of people think of
Hmm.
clutter as just stuff. And I like that you just mentioned that it's way more than that. It's the mental, it's the emotional, it's physical health. Can you explain to us a little bit more about how you define clutter in terms of in those areas?
Sure. Well, so for me, mental clutter might be insomnia, right? What's gnawing at us that's keeping us up late at night? Or monkey mind, right? I can't stop. I'm always constant thinking what needs to be done. Stress. Emotional clutter might be those knee-jerk reactions, or, I lived in LA and it's like traffic's crazy. And so am I going to give someone the finger, right? Instead of being like, oh, maybe or there's a traffic jam. How can I take those 5 minutes, calm down and center myself? And so, or emotional eating, right? I'm not able to express myself, so I'm going to stuff my space. And spiritual clutter for me are things like not being able to forgive, not having gratitude, not knowing your life's purpose or passion, and being kind of unmoored. So those are different examples. In relationships, how healthy are your relationships? If you haven't seen the YouTube videos that Emoto, and I don't remember his last name, he looks at water, and when you yell at water and how the chemical compound changes, and then when you say, "Water, I love you," well, we're what, 70 what percent of water, but it's who we surround ourselves with, we become like them. So who are your closest people? How are they creating clutter in their life? And then having the awareness, how are you creating clutter for other people?
I love that. So I like that there seems to be a connection between not just the emotional baggage, but then also the physical clutter. I like the example of the water because I think it explains too how energy works. I think
Mhm.
that was done as well, some kind of scientific experiment where I think it was rice or a plant or something. And if you talk positive to it,
Yes.
it'll grow and flourish and thrive. And
And
if you do negative, then it'll wilt and die or mold if it was the rice. And so I'm wondering, like, how would you kind of define the connection between emotional clutter and physical clutter, or is there even a connection?
1,000%. So what I would probably say it is the inner reflects the outer and the outer reflects the inner, right? So I also want people to think of not only that, but the bigger picture of clutter. And what I mean by that is a messy desk might be not just a messy desk, but a roadblock to a promotion, or doing that creative project that you said, I want to write that novel, or I want to make that painting, or an overstuffed closet might prevent a relationship from blossoming, right? Because everything's energy, as you mentioned a moment ago. And so my definition is clutter is anything that prevents you from creating a life and space you love, that you deserve, you desire, that's where you want to be. And so I want people to get out of that, because you mentioned before, which we sometimes so get stuck, that clutter is just a physical stuff, and it's so much more than that.
Hmm.
And everything's energy, right?
Hmm.
So your clutter saying to the universe, hey, I'm good. Don't need abundance. Everything's groovy. Don't give me any more. Can't handle it.
That's amazing. I never thought of it that way, but that is 100% true. That is so eye-opening. Are there signs for someone who is maybe being affected by clutter, but they just don't even realize it?
Oh, that's a great question. So I like to tell people, so if you're able to sit in a space that's pretty clutter free, clear, or if you and close your eyes, and how does that feel to you? You can feel energy if you close your eyes. Like for me, I feel like a swirling. I studied energy healing though, so I feel like a swirling of my hand. And then go into a room that's kind of chaotic and close your eyes and be aware of how you feel like that. Or if that's too much, think of a space you feel really good in,
Mm.
right? You can relax, be yourself, and then look around. What is it about this space? And become more aware and take that and do it with people. Who's it you like? All women listening are going to understand when I say, oh, I met this person and wanted to take a shower immediately, right? I felt gross and disgusting, right? You
Mhm.
can't articulate that. Or, the saying, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife, right? So, kind of becoming aware of that. Again, can you relax in your space? Can you create? Do you feel good? Those are kind of the questions to ask yourself.
That's great. And I'm wondering too, in hearing that, because I know a lot of people, like we talked about earlier, with people just thinking that clutter is just stuff and not understanding that there is a deeper connection to that. And then it can hinder so many things. And I'm wondering, and I'm sure you have had so many cases in your line of work, but what are the common myths, or have you come across people that have common myths about clutter that prevents them from moving forward and growing?
Well, I would say, I want to touch on a couple things. So first of all, overwhelm
Mm,
is usually, Julie, my entire house has clutter, right?
yes.
And so we might not be able, that's where we start. Okay, that's okay. We take it one step at a time. 10 minutes a day equals just over 60 hours in a year. You can accomplish a lot in 60 hours. So if you're overwhelmed, give me 10 minutes. You can't do that, give me 5 minutes. That's still 30 hours. So the thing is, you start small, right? Rome wasn't built in a day. Your clutter's not going to go away in a day. So how being aware of your overwhelm and being able to take action through that. I say a lot of people really get stuck on memories, right? Oh my gosh, this was the sweater I wore when I met my husband. And what I say to that is your memories are in your heart and in your head. Got that mixed up there. So in your heart and your head. So if that object goes away, the memory's not going to. And because, people are like, oh, or I'd see a lot of times, especially if someone has died and they have to go through this stuff and there's a lot of guilt. Oh, I can't give away that guilt. That was my mother's, right? And so that's really hard. And what I say to that is when your loved ones have gone on to the next adventure, they want you to be happy. They don't want their thing. They're free now. They're out of this physical body. They don't want you to be burdened. They don't want you to have that guilt.
Yeah.
And so encourage you to let go. And it's a process. I'll share my mother died 3 years ago, but behind me are several of her paintings. She was an artist. And so I couldn't immediately let go of everything, but because I had the space and ability, I gave myself time.
Mhm.
Like she died, I can't go through everything in 5 minutes. And sometimes, unfortunately, that's what has to happen. But know that it's a process. So maybe I'm going through books as we speak. And books are the hardest things for me to let go. I've loved to read, I love books. And I'm like, okay, I have 3 boxes to take now because it's something that I do regularly. So I would say being overwhelmed. Oh, and we talked about memories are two of the challenges. I'd say misconceptions are, and I take this to the TV show hoarders and I take it to social media and Instagram, that you're going to be able to do it in 5 minutes. You didn't create the clutter in 5 minutes. It is going to take you time to do that. And so that's something to be aware of.
Yeah. And I love that you talked about the memories part, because I think that is a big, big, big part. I know for me it is. I'm a person who likes to collect mementos. And
Yes.
so, and then it's the idea that when I see the thing, it will trigger the memory. And that is why I hold on to things sometimes. I know when my father passed and I had to clean out his house, at the time, I couldn't let anything go. And
Of
so,
course.
and it was overwhelm, exactly like you're saying, complete overwhelm. So I just ended up putting everything into storage. And then years later, and I think it was just last year that I cleaned out his storage unit and started actually giving things away and selling things and getting rid of the storage unit. But it took years for me to actually get to that point of, okay, I don't really come to the storage unit. I don't need these actual physical things. I can let go of them. It doesn't affect the memory. But I think that's a big thing for a lot of people is I don't want to get rid of the thing because it is attached to a person or a memory or something that I hold dearly. And there's this connection to, if I hold it dearly, it's got to be a physical thing, when it doesn't. It doesn't
It
have
doesn't.
to remain in a physical way. And I saw somewhere, I think it may have been an article where it was like, you can just take a photo of the thing, the material thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then let it go.
Right. And you can, if you want, if you have a lot of things, get a little digital frame, right,
Mm,
that you can cycle through. And then, I want to mention about mementos for a second. I'm not someone who's like, get rid of everything. I don't think that's realistic for 99% of us. But then curate something. So maybe if they're ticket stubs or pictures or whatever, then you have a shadow box that has that you become discerning. What out of these momentums mean the most to me? Or if you are someone who ran marathons all the time, take those old t-shirts and make it into a quilt, right? Because a quilt's something you're going to use. You can look at the t-shirts, but it's not all these things just hanging out, collecting dust in a drawer. I can't tell you how many people, oh, it's been sitting there for 20 years. And label, again, no judgment on it, but learn to be discerning. I
mhm.
think that should make it easier. And you also touched on something that I want to touch on, that I love that you gave stuff away. So my mom's paintings are a great story. Like A week after my mom died, my dad's like, I'm going to give you, because I'm the best, to go through your mom's paintings first, right, out of all the children. And so God loved my husband. So I did a first pass, and my husband came and he said, honey, we don't have enough wall space, to put these pictures. And so I was like, okay, I needed someone to tell me that. But what helped me was I gave people that knew my mom, and I had to ship 3 out to California. And boy, was that expensive. That knew my mom. I gave paintings. Tell me what you like, and I'm going to send. And so one thing, and my dad's continuing to do that because up until a couple weeks before she died, she was painting. And that gave me such joy because I know my mom is spreading her love. Every time someone walks by that painting, they think of my mom. It makes them happy. And that allowed me to let more go.
I 100% agree with that. And I think the same thing happened also. Like I still have people, especially males, they took a lot of his ties during the wake and things. And they'll say like, oh, I had to dress up and I was wearing a tie and it made me, think of your dad. And so I absolutely do agree that I think of it as spreading the love, a continuation, and also keeping the memory of that person alive by giving it to other people. So we talked about overwhelm. And because that is such, I think, first of all, there's just so much going on in the world in general. So I think in general, people are faced with overwhelm just on a dick basis before even thinking about the clutter in their homes and all the things they need to do with the house. So for people who are listening to this and they realize clutter might be affecting me, but I'm already overwhelmed. So this is making me feel even more overwhelmed. Where do they start? What would be a simple step for them to do?
Great question. Well, first I want to share a story about me because I do this for a living. So my first job, I had a whole home declutter and organization. Did the top floor as a big house, a bunch of kids. Get to the second floor, get most, and then I go to the pantry. Now this was the biggest pantry I'd ever seen in my life. It was 6 feet tall, and I stood there and I became overwhelmed. It's like a brain fart and forgot everything I knew. So what I do, I stopped and I just started to breathe. And I was like, okay, come back into my body. So if you're overwhelmed, and with everything going on in the news, I'm staying informed to take action. But there are 2 things that I'm doing. One is I'm breathing, just centering myself, learn grounding techniques. Go on YouTube. There are a bunch of things that you can find. So just breathe, just ground, pull in your aura, clean out your aura, whatever those things for self-care that you can do. The other thing is bring joy into your life, okay? Because if you are overwhelmed, joy, happiness, gratitude is going to be an antidote to that. So when you start to feel like I can't do this, I'm going to tell you those 2 things. So then let's get back to okay, I brought some joy in, I've grounded myself. How do I take that first step? So what I tell people is, is there a deadline? Like you're getting cabinets in the garage. Well, we probably want to get it decluttered so we're not paying someone time to move all the stuff to install the cabinets. Or is there something that is driving you nuts? We can't eat at the kitchen table and we're fighting all the time. So I think that I need to clutter the dining room or wherever the clutter is. Or if there's a serious issue, like you're not sleeping at night. So then we need to clear the clutter in the bedroom and the bed. Or if you're not paying your bills on time, right? Then we need to get our home office decluttered. So those are some suggestions on where to start. And then just remember, I mentioned a moment ago, if your whole house needs done, we're not going to worry about that. We'll become present, right? Because remember, the present is our point of power to change. I can't change the past. Trust me, I've tried really hard to change the past. And the future's written in pencil, right? I don't know what's going to happen. There's so many things, but we become present, and that's our place to take action. So let's say we're in my home office. So we say, okay, I'm going to start with the home office. I'm going to give it 10 minutes today. And instead of being like, oh my gosh, the home office, I'm going to say, okay, the closet. That's where I'm going to start. And I am not going to move until the closet's been decluttered. And then once that's done, I'm going to say, okay, here's the bookcase. Then I'm going to start there. And then I'm going to say, okay, here's the other bookcase, right? And you make it into small, manageable steps. Now, I'm someone, you can do it on an app. I'm old school. I like to feel the pen going against the paper. But I like to write out all the little areas and then that sense of accomplishment when I can cross off, aha, that's done. And remember, the more you do this, the easier it becomes. And I guarantee you, everyone listening, you have the skills to declutter and organize. And you might have had a bad experience and someone said, nah, you can't, leave that in the past.
That's actually very important. I think for me, because I was faced with overwhelm as well, And it was just, multiple rooms, especially bedrooms, closets full of stuff. And it was that. It was like, just pick a room and just start. And then it was like, even if I have just 10 minutes, just do that. Because I think part of the thing that was debilitating for me was how do I schedule it in? How do I clear out a full day or two? And then it was like, well, I just don't have a full day or two. So I guess I'm just never going to get around to getting these closets done. When really it just was start and give it 10 minutes. And then if the next day it's another hour, great. If the next day it's 30 minutes, that's fine. And it took 1 week, I think, to get through a whole closet, but at least it got done. And
it got done.
That was such a great feeling.
And I'm going to push back on people listening because people say to me, I don't have time. Well, one, or my niece, when she was 8, when I was trying to explain to her what I did, she said, boring. But, so there are ways, one, we can talk about in a moment, making fun. But before I forget, how much time are you spending on social media? Because people say to me, I don't have time. Then one time when people tell me that, I'm going to encourage you, I want you to just track your time for 2 weeks. Doesn't have to be super like how much you're spending at work, your commute, but how much are you spending scrolling, right? Or playing video games or watching TV. I read in 2024 217 books. I love to read, but I was able to read that many books because I wasn't watching TV. So I encourage you, where are your time suckers, right? And then I'm not saying, okay, you have to give it up completely, although I would, that's another story. But then you can give me a half an hour from your social media time and put that to decluttering, organizing. And, to quote my niece of boring, then how do you make it fun? You listen to music. You make sure you have your water and your snacks, and maybe you get your BFF to come over and help you do it. And then you maybe have a vision board of what you want the room or your house to look like, or you want to create that relationship or that script sale or whatever it is. And you put that vision board up to remind you, okay, but I'm decluttering and organizing to welcome the energy to what I want to create in my life.
First of all, the amount of books that you've read, so motivational to me. I read 24 and was like, yeah,
yay, all good.
But I think that that's true. And I actually, as you were saying that, I was thinking back and I'm thinking, well, where did my time go? Why couldn't I have read more books in that time? But it was. I'm not big on social media. I put a timer on my phone where it times out so I can't go too deep in that rabbit hole. But there are things that I get sucked into. Like you said, the television and shows and things like that. So it dawned on me. I didn't even really think about it, where I could be just a simple reading or decluttering at that time. Very helpful. You've said a couple of things with the vision board, and before we were talking about energy, and then you said just making space. And so I want to touch on, especially being a mindset coach, I want to touch on the mindset and the shift that needs to happen to kind of get out of your own way and start decluttering and start making space. I know we talked about kind of how it's clutter's energy, but is there another shift that you would define as necessary to be successful at decluttering?
Here's what I like to tell people. I believe we are either coming from love or we're coming from fear. And fear will take a bunch of different things. And I've kind of defined that a little more because what I tell people is you are good enough, you are worthy, and you are loved no matter what. Do we all make mistakes? Absolutely. But you are good enough. So if I think I'm good enough, then I'm going to give myself permission to declutter my desk because I'm good enough to write that great American novel that I've always wanted to write. If I think I'm worthy of having a clean and clear space or calling into my life that relationship that I want. And I am loved. You know what? If I am loved, then I want the inner to reflect the outer, and I want my outer space to reflect what I feel inside.
Love it. Love it. And then do you have any tips to once someone gets there and they have done the work, they've put in the hours, everything is feeling lighter, they've decluttered, everything is organized, it feels great. Do you have any tips for how to keep that and not acquire more clutter and then get to a place where it just feels stifling again?
Excellent. So when I work with people, I give them a clutter control plan when we're done. And so one of the things that I talk about is maintenance, right?
Hmm.
It's great. Now, if you never buy another thing, you'll probably be good to go, but most of us, that's not realistic. So think little habits are important. So for instance, tidying your desk at the end of the work week, whether that's your home office or if you go into a physical office, again, that helps your mind, right? You walk in Monday morning, everything's clear. So then I say, once you've done an overhaul, then I declutter once a year. But because the heavy lifting's been done, it's a breeze. Or when you have the opportunity, you're getting your hardwood floors refinished and you got to put everything away as you come back. I'm going through my books, right? No time like the present. Told my husband, okay, we're going to go through the clothes, because the t-shirts, whatever, because that opportunity presented itself. But you might be like, oh, I'm packing up to get my hardwoods redone. I'm going to clutter now, right? So be aware of where opportunities are or inspiration strikes. The other night it was like, I'm not a morning person and I shut off probably 6 or 7. I'm like, I just want to read. I don't want to think. But I was inspired like at 9 o'clock the other night to go through my closet. And I was like, inspiration hits, do it. So I just went through a rack and it happened for a couple nights and then my closet was done. So it's just as long as you're maintaining it. And the other thing I like to share is be aware of your clutter kryptonite. And what I mean by that is, Superman had the kryptonite, it was at his knees. What is your clutter kryptonite? For me, it's beauty product. Oh, you can get rid of wrinkles? Lay it on me, right? But then I have all these beauty samples. Are they ever going to be used? Or I love leopard print, right? And so it's like, okay, what do I look good in with leopard print? Let's not just get this thing because it's leopard print. You might look horrible in it, right? And so being aware, like, okay, maybe I have that friend, oh my God, Cottie, I'm looking at something leopard print, talk me down the ledge, right? And we become aware of that because awareness plus action equals change. So as
Hmm.
you become, okay, where is it that I might get stuck or need some challenge? Or if you're the person that, 10 for 10 at Kroger, and then you've got this huge pantry
Yeah.
of food that you haven't used, right? And
Yeah.
then, like we talked about earlier about your dad's ties and my mother's paintings and spreading the joy. Like every May, the U.S. Post Office, there's a built-in time to do your pantry because they're coming around to collect food, right? I mean, it can't get any easier than that. All you have to do is take it out to the mailbox. Or we have a kid every year that for Catholic Charities comes around and leaves a bag for you right there. Put your food in it. I'm going to come pick it up in a week. I mean, you can't beat that. So look at other ways. How can you spread the love? As you say, how can you bring joy to others? And, remember that, like, as we've talked about energy, it's like the stagnant energy is clutter, but also that holding on. And is
Yeah.
that making you think that there's scarcity? Well, that's what you're signaling. Hey, I don't think I'm ever going to have enough again. So that's why I'm holding on. So how can you let it go?
Yeah. The one thing that I know my kryptonite is clothing, and especially when there's a sale. And then I find myself just constantly buying blouses or shirts or pants. And then I put them in the closet and then I forget about them. And then when I go through, I'm like, oh, this still has a tag on it. I haven't even worn it. And one of the tips that I came across that was so helpful was when you have things in the closet and they're hanging, hang them backwards.
Words. Yep.
And so after a while, when you go through in 3 months and 6 months, 9 months, and then 12 months, if they're still hanging backwards, like you wear them, you put them back and you put them right, right? So the
Yep.
ones that are still hanging backwards during whatever time you go to check are the ones you need to get rid of, the ones you need to donate because you don't wear them enough. And then that was incredibly eye opening. The first time I did that and I went in that closet and all those hangers that were backwards and facing me, I was like, "Oh, geez, I really need to go through and clean these out." But it also made it easier to clean out because I knew very quickly which ones I was not wearing. And so it just was taking all of those and putting them in a bag and then donating them.
I encourage people, if they have the finances, have a coach do your colors, know what looks good on you, because I don't like to shop and I'm not good at it. And I'd be someone who'd buy something on sale and then like you would never wear it.
Yep.
And so I'm not there, but most of my clothes, like a V-neck look really good on me. But I'm like, I have like what, 3 sweaters. So it's what I'm cold today, what I'm going to wear. And so when you know, okay, V-neck looks good on me, this color looks good on me, that one saves you stress and easier to buy. It also, if you're in the frame of mind, you can let stuff go because you know what, that's not really a good color for me.
Hmm.
And I think that that's important. What I'm trying to get to, that's on my to-do list, is to pare it down to make things easier. Like I just had a fancy event and I have a cocktail dress, felt great in it. And that's my goal. I want to feel like I wore this dress and I'm like, watch out world. And that's my goal so that when I go to my closet, I'm like, how am I going to slay today? Right. Instead of
Mhm.
being like, I have nothing to wear, right? How many times have people said that? So the goal for me is, and I encourage others, when you walk in that closet, you feel like $1,000,000 in it, anything that you were going to pull.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. You also talk about preparing for death and how preparing for death can help you live more fully. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I just have to tell you. So we had been texting this morning, and I went to get your text about what time we're going to interview, and there was a text that a neighbor of mine died
Oh.
at 64. Totally, she had stage 4 liver cancer. I'm not feeling well. Went to the doctor a couple months ago, and now she's gone. Right, so we never know when our number is going to be called. And so if you and we're all gonna die, right? No one gets out. I know the crazy guy out in California is doing he's in his 40s and doing the, 800 calories a day or that strict regimen. I don't wanna live my life. I like cheesecake, right? But we're not getting out of this alive. And so if you know that, then you can say, "You know what? Tomorrow might be my last day. Do I
Mm.
wanna spend it in clutter? Do I wanna spend it having someone take rent in my head that I don't like, right? How is it that
Mm.
I wanna spend my time? And, as I've gotten older, I think, "What's my legacy? How do I wanna leave this world a better place?" And so I'm starting the wheels of creating a cat sanctuary and dog sanctuary, and I've been starting to think this through and come up with public-private partnerships, so something that's outlasting that I have said, "You know what? I made a difference." And so it's to start to think about those things like, what's my legacy? Or do you want all these things like my mother's jewelry that I have when my nieces get to a certain age? I want them to be able to have it so that they can enjoy it for most of my life. And so just being aware, you just never know. So how are you living your life? Are you maximizing it? Are you with people you love? Are you doing what puts a smile on your face? Do you wake up happy every day? And if you don't, that's okay.
Mhm.
But what do you need to do to change that, right? Because I think especially when we're younger, I know I was this way. Die, that's a million years from now. I'm not happening to me, right? But you just never know.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. Have you ever had a client that has been transformed by changing the mindset around just one, living a more fulfilling life or decluttering or becoming organized?
Oh, yeah, many. I'm trying to. Well, here I'm going to share one story, and then I'll share a couple more.
Mm.
Because this was such an example. It was when I first started my business, and I donated hours to a charity, and I was working with this woman. But this is, to me, the power of decluttering. So we're going through her sock drawer, of all things, and so as we're sorting and doing this, she looked at me and she said, "Oh my God, I was molested." And in that moment, I held space. I
Mhm.
couldn't work with her on that. I held space for her to express this, and I said, "I can't help you. I'm going to find you some resources, to start you on this journey." But simply moving the energy, you just never know when something so profound like that's going to come up, right? Because
Yeah.
this was someone who had a bunch of stuff, and I'm not don't work with hoarders. You need special training, but there's a mental illness component to hoarders. But when you have everything so stuffed and crammed, and when you release that and open the space, I mean, it really can be profound. I had another instance where it was the first job when I was overwhelmed with the pantry, and this mother had a small business. She was homeschooling kids, and every time her mother-in-law walked in her house, she criticized her. And that caused such tension and such angst from her. And when that house was transformed, it transformed the relationship. And not only because it's more than the physical stuff. So her homework was, you ask your mother-in-law to come over and sit with the kids, and you go to the park, you go read a book, you go work out, you go find me time. So instead of criticizing you, we're going to turn that relationship around, and you're going to start asking for help. And
Mm.
so the relationship transformed. One of my favorite stories, because she was a Pittsburgh Steelers fan like me, was, that was the crazy kitchen table, and they were both in their second marriage. And because it was so cluttered, they had started to argue, but they weren't coming together at mealtime at night to discuss their days and to reconnect. And when we got all that done and having them reconnect and recommit to their marriage, I mean, it was just fantastic. So That's what gets me excited, because when you clear your clutter, you can really transform lives.
That's beautiful. Do you use any particular tools or apps or strategies? I know you said that you're old school, you like to actually feel the pen against the paper, but like what do you use, or what do you suggest that people use if they're just feeling really overwhelmed and they're like, I need some type of help?
I am a firm believer of some type of meditation or mindfulness practice. It doesn't have to be something quote unquote formal. I like mowing the grass. When I mow, that gets me in an incredibly meditative state. So it's having some type of mindfulness practice. I think gratitude is super important. Like, you're in the shower, 3 things that I'm grateful for and why. Why am I grateful for this,
Mhm.
right? And get us into that daily habit of having gratitude. As I mentioned, I read a lot, right? So I'm always trying to improve myself. So finding different things at work. I love the book, The Four Agreements. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Mhm.
It is a small book, but very powerful. So can't remember which number it is, but when I read what others do and say about you is about them, and
Mhm.
how you respond is about you, was life changing for me.
Yes.
And so that's something I remember. So in the past, I would have been like, "Rare," and have that knee jerk reaction. And I'm like, okay, you just called me fat in front of my husband. That's about you. That doesn't have anything to do with me. I'm going to let that roll off my back
Mhm.
like water off a duck, right?
Mhm.
And so incorporating little things like that. I'm a huge fan of journaling. I think that that's really important. Expressing ourselves. I mentioned about emotional eating. And if we're able to express ourselves, and sometimes we can't say what we need to someone, but I can write it on paper,
Yeah.
right? I can do that. I can
Mhm.
take care of myself that way.
So I'm wondering too, because you've written so many books, and I know that you have some meditations and you have journal prompts and you have so many resources for people, which is fantastic. But it seems like a lot of the information that you share does come back to energy and kind of that energetic alignment, even with the meditation,
Hmm.
journaling, all of those things, which is more about, it seems, to correct me if I'm wrong, but being centered on the inside. And then once you have that centering and you feel centered and you feel grounded, then it is about, I guess, sort of transforming that or letting that come to the external world and making sure that your external world aligns with your internal world. Is that correct?
I would say that's true. And just remember, though, anything you do, so if you clear your desk, that's going to clear your mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everything's affecting everything all the time. And so, if you can't spend 10 minutes a day on your closet, then give me 10 minutes of meditation, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's going to end up, you have to, I'm a little less stressed. You know what? I didn't think I had it in me, but I can go spend 15 minutes doing the closet, right? And it feeds off of everything.
Mm-hmm. So then really it's the clutter, both external and internal. So even if you can't work on the external clutter, you can work on that internal clutter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So no excuses.
So you have been doing this for a while. I mean, again, we've talked about the 15 books. You've been hosting your Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out. That has been going for about a decade. So, what keeps you passionate about this work?
Well, the meditations and the affirmations are new. I just did those within the 6 months, but that was my goal for all of last year. So I'm like, how can I reach people? And I've always been thinking outside the box. So coming up with creative ways,
Mhm.
one that's going to support people, but that also enriches my creativity, right? And so that, because the older I get, I'm doing less of the physical decluttering, because it's getting harder, right?
Yeah.
I'm doing my yoga. I'm trying to be more flexible, but I have to be realistic at the same time. I'm like, I have 4 cats. I need to, keep them accustomed to their lifestyle, right? So I've got to keep the income coming in, right? And so what is going to light my creativity and also support people? Because
Mhm.
as far as I know, there aren't any meditations except mine on clutter, and they're focused on the specific areas.
Yeah. And are your meditations focused on both? I mean, we talked about like emotional, mental,
All
physical.
of those.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That's great.
All of holiday, right? You got crazy family. We got a holiday meditation for you, and the same with the journal prompts, right? Wherever you need to be, start there, and it's going to have an effect on other areas.
That's fantastic. I'm definitely going to check this out. I'm a big meditator myself, and I love to do guided meditations for beginners. But I think having something that is about clutter, especially for emotional clutter and physical
Hmm.
clutter, is game changing. So the other thing I want to talk to you about is just self-care. I know that you said that the bathtub is like
Is the
your
woman
woman
cave.
cave, which I absolutely love. I'm the same. Like I truly just transformed a bathroom to put in a soaking tub because that's just heaven to me. So
You and
I
me
can
both.
relate on so many levels. But what is your self-care ritual and routine?
Well, I have to share this because you mentioned, so we have a soaking tub too. And I was literally in the store trying them. And I thought at once, my husband's like, well, do you want the one with the armrest? Because you read a lot. Went in, I was like, oh no. So we got the soaking tub. I was like, we're going to put a little niche because I have like 12. I always going to have like 12 bubble baths to choose from. So it was right next to me. So self care is the bubble bath. I have started stretching and doing yoga. I hurt myself, and I've found this wonderful PT person who has me doing yoga and journaling. I, God love him, talk to my husband because when I'm upset, he's just so wonderful. And even if it sounds crazy, he's like, it's okay, and comforts me. I like to do snuggy time with the cats. You know, I make sure throughout my day, one, because you don't want to sit all the time if I'm at home, that I'm bringing that time in, and reading is something that's really important to me. And then writing. I'm working on a book that does not have to do with clutter. It's a personal journey. When I like to call it, I spent, and when I was in North Carolina, a time in Cult Light in this women's group. And because I know I'm not the only one that gets caught up in that, because I believe when we share our stories with others, we give them permission to share their stories. We
Mhm.
give people permission to heal and to take action and move forward. So that is part of my self-care and healing, working on this book.
Yeah. And I will say 4 cats. I had that too, and they were a handful. Love them, but they are a handful. Mm. And your cats are rescued, correct?
They are, and you know what? We just on January 14th, a little black kitten. I come home, my husband's like,
Oh,
"What?" I was out. It was snowing, it was cold, and this little black kitten came up to me. Looks like he's a run. I'm like, "I can't leave you." So we now have Jack Henry. So that's why we're at
whoa,
4.
that's great. But I did want to ask you, do your cats ever help you with any of your decluttering projects?
They supervise and judge. They sit in judgment. Don't have the cats on your decluttering project because they're going to sit there and judge you, but they supervise.
Yeah. The one reason I asked that question is because I know with mine, anytime I'm doing anything where I am trying to declutter and I'm taking things out and I usually have a big pile of mess, here they come and then they
Yep.
will drag something
Yeah.
away and I'm like, wait, where was that? And then it's in another room and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's the opposite of helping.
Right. You're making more work for me.
So one of the things that I wanted to ask, and I always ask this of everybody, but if there's one powerful message that you could leave with listeners today, what would that be?
I would say what I already mentioned, that you are good enough, you are worthy, and you are loved no matter what. And don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. And I'm telling you, we're in challenging times right now. And this applies to more than just your clutter, because there are going to be people telling you that you aren't worthy, you aren't good enough, and you aren't loved. And no to them, and empower yourself with that.
I think that's beautiful. I think that is extremely important because I think when people feel that they are loved and feel that they are worthy, especially on the inside,
Hmm.
then that could change the world. I think that's how big change is made, is when people feel that way.
Right. And remember, it's like when you feel that way, people pick up on that vibe. Really, well, talk to me, tell me your story, right? And then you empower someone else to feel that way. And it's what you're talking about. And then it starts out small and then it grows.
Yes. It's truly profound also when you think about decluttering. And again, going all the way back to the beginning of the episode when I talked about it being January and having fresh starts and resets. Another reason why I just really wanted to have this conversation so early on in the year is because I think that it's so important to, when you think about the physical clutter, yes, and especially when you think about it energetically. And I think that those things can be draining and that they can just pull on you. And we're already surrounded by so much negativity. It's like
Yeah.
we don't need that. We need to live in a space that feels
Mm.
supportive, in an environment that feels encouraging and cozy and
Mm-hmm.
positive. But the other thing is we internalize a lot of stuff as well. And so even though decluttering for some people can be external, I like the fact that we're talking about the
Mm-hmm.
mental and the emotional, because I think, like you said, we're in a time where those are going to be challenged more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And coming off a time where we just had COVID and there were a lot of people staying at home, I think clutter has also, in a physical form, has also manifested a lot too, just because we were constantly home and we're dealing
Mm-hmm.
with the stress, we're dealing with the anxiety, we're dealing with all of these different emotions. So I love that you said that, because I think the grounding part and the centering part is getting back to
Mm-hmm.
self-love and self-acceptance. And then once we are grounded mentally and emotionally, then that will reflect outward. And then hopefully other people pick up on it. It goes to all the spaces. So not just your
Mm-hmm.
physical space, but it goes to relationships you have with people. It goes
Yeah.
to your coworkers. It goes just to anyone that you have interactions with. So that's a very, very powerful message.
And when you believe that truly with your heart and your being, people aren't going to push you around. One, they're not even going to approach you because they sense that, right? Because who do they go after? They go after the people they think are the weakest. But
Hmm.
then they realize, I can't get away with that. I can't do that to them, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Julie, thank you so much for coming on and for making the time. I really appreciate it. I, again, think that this is a great conversation, and I think it's so eye-opening and enlightening. And I know that listeners are going to definitely have some takeaways from this.
I'd like to just let people know if they'd like to find out more information, they can go to reawakenyourbrilliance.com. And I've got, if you sign up for my newsletter, 10 free tips right now to take action to clear clutter in all areas of your life.
Perfect. Yes. And then we will have all of your contact information and links in the show notes as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you.